Today we're going to continue building the shower cabin, or wet head as some might call it, on my 40-foot steel yacht. So far I've showed you how I built a solid foundation for the wooden boards that were going to constitute the floor and walls of the future cabin. And you've also seen how I made the first two wooden panels. And so today we're gonna take it up from there. And I have to warn you, because there are so many elements in this build, it's impossible to show it in a straightforward chronological fashion, but I'll do my best to present it in the most clear and comprehensible way possible. I'll start by making the floorboards, which I could also call the shower tub. First I'm gonna draw a straight line, which I will use as a reference for the border between the two boards that I'm gonna put in. For this I got two plywood plates made of birchwood, and although they are both made from the same wood, they have very different color shade and wood grain pattern. But as you know, I don't care much about these things, so let's move on to cutting. After making a first rough cut, I put the board in place to see where else I need to remove some material. I make sure that this side of the board is aligned at all times with that reference line I drew earlier. I then mark the areas where I need to remove more material to make the board fit. Throughout this build, you will see me applying very simple measurement techniques. I'll try to point out a few as we go along, and oftentimes I have to resort to my intuition or simple guesswork to find the right place to cut or drill. Another common theme you're gonna see throughout this build is that I have to put the boards in and out countless times, each time making small adjustments, removing some material here and there to make it fit better and better, and most importantly to avoid removing too much material. Alright, now the first board has a pretty snug fit, maybe a bit too snug in some areas, but for now we can move on to the next board. Here I need to find the best way for how to make the cutout for the toilet's outlet pipe. First I cut it a little more to size. It seems that the best way is to make it come in from this side. So I simply mark the position of the pipe onto the board. I measure the distance to the pipe from the edge and its diameter. Then I draw those lines onto the wooden board. I take the closest round thing for the cutout for the pipe and then cut it out with a single cut, which will be important later on. A first test fitting shows that I'm on the right track, and most importantly that borderline between the two boards is spot on. Next I remove everything that hinders the board from sliding in all the way. A cutout for the different water pipes that come in later. Here I'm cutting out two narrow strips of wood, which I will use as spacers underneath the floorboards, for one to compensate for the difference in thickness between the two boards, and for another to create a slight slope on the horizontal plane. Alright, now with the two floorboards in place, I am overjoyed that I managed to get a literally seamless border between the two boards, were it not for the difference in color shade. At the same time, we have a very tight fit in all other areas. Even the slope appears quite promising at the moment. Here, there's a piece missing due to an error in measurement when I first ordered the boards. Not an issue though, because I still have this leftover triangle from the same panel. So I simply cut that to shape and glue it onto the floorboard. To close the open area behind the drain pipe, I take the cutout from before and simply remove a full circle where the pipe will later sit. Of course now I have to find an elegant solution for how to make this board stay in place. For this I'm gonna prepare 4 little squares with a hole in them. I'm going to put a short screw through each of them and screw them onto the underside of the floorboard as such. Now the board is held in place without the supports being visible from above. And I can pivot these little support plates out of the way so I can slide the board down that drain pipe. Now let's deal with the large area underneath the overhang below the window. This is not only curved in all directions, but also devoid from any right angles. Here I'm using a straight wooden board to get a feel for the offset from the right angles. For this board especially, I needed to resort a lot on my visual sense of proportion and my gut feeling, for lack of a better word, because I find it very difficult to measure the exact angles that the corners should have. So I tried to get it as close as possible, putting it in and out several times, each time making small adjustments until it finally fits. And as you can see, with this method, while being extremely exhausting, I managed to get the board to fit quite precisely, even in the difficult areas. Next I'm gonna put back the floorboards, because now I want to make a board that covers the area between the floorboards and the wall panel that I just installed. For this I need to cut a so-called obtuse trapezoid, which is pretty much the most difficult rectangular shape there is. The chances that I get all the angles right are very slim. I got it to fit pretty close off the first try, just a small corner to cut away, and then this board too fits pretty well. Alright, now let's put everything in place we got so far, to see if the new boards fit with the side panels we made last time, and to continue with the next set of boards. So far, this is looking very good to me. We have a few larger gaps which should disappear once the boards are properly attached. And then other gaps are perfect right away. Next I'm gonna remove everything that's in the way. I'm also gonna remove the wood from the steel flat profile that runs vertically here next to the door. And I'm gonna replace it with a thick wooden strip made of beechwood. After coating it with tung oil, I cut it to the right length. And I also need to trim the width by a couple of centimeters. Next I drill some holes so I can attach it to the steel flat profile, and I also spray paint it with a coat of boat lacquer. And a detailed report about my new spray paint gun will follow in future videos. For now, let's put this piece in place. Next I got another big plywood plate made of birch wood. This will act as one of the outer walls for the shower cabin. Now with that in place, let's have a quick look. A very good fit here between the two boards. The lines appear perfectly parallel to each other. The cabin is slowly taking shape. Next I'll prepare the floorboards to accommodate for the new wall. I'm gonna put in this service hatch, which is actually meant to be used on the outer shell of a mobile home or trailer, but it has the perfect size for my purpose, and it's also waterproof, of course after I put in a window. Next, I'll cover up the overhang below the window. This should be fairly easy, even though here too we don't have any right angles. For this I got a very thin plywood plate. And because it's hidden from view, I can use wood screws wherever I want to attach it. Alright, now let's move on to the final board in this video, and this is the one I dreaded the most because I wasn't really sure how to get the cutout for the window aligned with the actual window. Of course, I'm using a large piece of cardboard to make a template of the window. Next, I'm trimming the board so that it can fit in that area. To determine the right position of the window, I took measurements at 2 points on the template, which I can then transfer onto the wood. In the end, my gut feeling told me to shift the whole thing about 1 centimeter to the left, and then I just cut it out. Worst case scenario, I'll have to go back to the hardware store and get a new plate. Now here comes the moment of truth. And see there, it's spot on. I might cut away a little at the bottom right, but other than that, it's close to perfect. And so with that, let's put all the boards we got so far into position. Here is my almost complete shower cabin. Most of the corners line up perfectly. The service hatch gives access to the sea valve and other important devices. The gaps will be covered with quarter-round woods. This gap will be smaller once I properly attach the board. This corner has a perfect fit between these 3 boards. Here too, I will need to put a quarter-round strip. I have already enlarged the cutout for the water hoses. The wires will eventually be hidden behind a triangular plate. I will need to add a wooden strip here at the bottom of the door frame to keep the water from getting out. I will have to come up with an elegant solution for the rounded border around the window. And of course, the door is still missing. And so that's where I'm at with the build of my shower cabin. Thank you for watching all the way, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.